Hey Judd, this is Jim Crocker from the Just Played RPG Recap podcast. And I was thinking about something you said in some earlier episodes. Hopefully I'm not too late to get this in, but in a couple of the April podcasts I listened to, you talked about embracing the TPK and using that as a path forward for a campaign to figure out what to do with your characters. And you also talked about how difficult it can sometimes be to access a property that has a heavily established canon like Star Wars or Star Trek. Well, the solution I found for those, and certainly I've used this in Marvel Heroic and Star Trek games I've ran, is TPK the Canon, which is to say, get in there at some cool inflection point in the story, nuke the main characters, and put the PCs in their place. Then you've got the history that everybody knows up till that point, and they can do their own thing going forward against all of the classic enemies. So that was my thought about that.
Jim, you are the man, as always. Yes. Short answer, yes. And I have a good story with it. When my buddy Jeff was living in a different state, and we would email back and forth and talk about gaming. He was running a game of D&D set in the Forgotten Realms, and he was really worried because there were people in the game who were pretty well versed in Forgotten Realms lore. And he was like, I just want to let them know that, this is their realms and our realms, and it's not necessarily the book's realms. And I was like, yeah, rock on. Let's think about how to do that. And I was like, here's what I think you should do. I think the game should start with them finding the crucified corpse of Elminster, right? And what is a better iconic way to let everyone know that this is not your realms, this is our realms, and it's different. And that's actually how the game started, and that was the campaign. It's like, what creature is capable of doing this? So that's my one story. But then fast forward a couple years, and Jeff and I are doing a podcast together. We're doing the Sons of Kryos, and we're at Wegmans. We're at Gen Con. Woof! Wegmans? Where did Wegmans come from? I love Wegmans. It's the best food store or grocery store in the world, but what the heck? Anyway, we were at Gen Con, and we were interviewing a gentleman, maybe you've heard of him, named Ed Greenwood. And it was a nice interview. He's a very affable gentleman. And I said, listen, Ed, I've got a sin I have to confess to you, and I feel like I need to get this off my chest. And he's like, all right, yeah, let's talk about it. And I told him about crucifying Elminster, and he loved it. And he was totally not cool about it. He wasn't like, oh my God, you crucified my baby. He was like, that's a fine way to make the realms your own, and I dig it, and I approve. So not only did we crucify Elminster, but we got Greenwood approval. Not that we needed any approval, that's kind of the whole point, but you get the idea. It's a cute story. And yeah, that's a great way to start and make a campaign world your own, is have the iconic characters get killed. Thumbs up. Definite big thumbs up. I dig it. I dig it, Jim, as always. And I dig Jim's podcast too. So if you want to listen to Jim talk about what he's playing, check it out. Check it out. If you want to know more about the amazing Jim Crocker, you can look at the show notes where I link to Just Played, his RPG recap podcast, where he talks about what he played, how it went, all that wonderful stuff. I also link to his website, Jim Likes Games. Jim's amazing. I love talking to him about gaming. I love hearing what he has to say and what he's thinking. He has amazing experience on the retail end of things, and I've gone to him for wisdom in displaying books in the library. When I was doing a project on that, Jim was one of the first people I called, and whenever we were able to link up when I lived in New York City and have lunch, it was always the highlight of my week. So check him out. Check out his work. Jim is what we call natural born police. Good people. So check him out. Check him out. And thank you again, Jim, for sending me a message. Love hearing it, and keep on keeping on with the show. I'm looking forward to hearing what you're playing. was having a conversation with one of the listeners who is also a supporter, and I want to say thank you to them. And I'm not going to name supporters unless they explicitly tell me they can, and I haven't asked, but this supporter will know who they are. They listen to the show, and we had a wonderful conversation about what they were liking about the show and what they would like to see more of. And they said something really interesting. And they asked me to talk more about what's evocative for me. And the combinations in random encounter tables of something cool and something mundane and something weird and something normal, and how I dig that. And I thought I would have a little supporter's choice segment here in the reply show and talk about that a little bit, and how I want to be inspired in my play. And by inspired by my play, I mean I'm a GM generally, although I've gotten to play a bit, and we'll talk about that more another time. And I'm going to get to play more, which is really exciting. So, what's evocative for me? I definitely do like it when there is something mundane mixed with something strange. And I also like random encounter tables that are more inspirational than prescriptive, right? So I like sometimes on a random encounter table, we definitely want 3 orcs are coming down the path. But sometimes I just want 3 bits of humanoid danger are coming down the path, and they're running from something, right? And I'm going to roll those different tables at different times, depending on the game. And it's an interesting thing to be thinking about. So thank you, supporter. And I appreciate that. And let's talk about that a little more. So a mix of the strange, the weird, and the mundane is definitely a part of it, right? And the game that does that for me the best is Stars Without Number. I love that in my Stars Without Number game, I can have situations where Strachan, who is a genetically engineered cannibal hunter, can turn to Dieter and Gabrielle and say, we can hire them, but we got to get the HR paperwork done, because otherwise HR is going to have a fit. Like, I like a moment like that is so damn surreal. And I definitely take a moment in the game to be like, that's amazing. I love that happened. And then keep playing, right? We don't need to stop. It doesn't necessarily have to be a mechanical appreciation. It just has to be a moment of, hey, this is why I play games. This is why I play games. For surreal, ridiculous, amazing moments like this. You know, I love that I've had situations in those games, those wonderful science fiction moments where you get to just stop and enjoy seeing a sun come out from behind a nebula because the ship is moving, and it's a moment of beauty, right? Things like that are really fun when they happen in tabletop. In tabletop, I find they happen mostly through dialogue, right? Because you can't necessarily narrate to brilliant effect. The sun comes out behind the nova, and it's really stunning and beautiful. You can, and it's good to take those moments and do that, because the players might decide that somehow their characters are really affected by that. And that can be amazing. I found, and I'm not a big LARPer, and I'm definitely not up on the modern LARP scene, but when I did do Boffer LARPs, I thought one cool thing that they did is give you a little weird moment that no one could have orchestrated, and no one did. I remember sitting near a lake with a buddy of mine, and we were brushing our teeth at 6:30 in the morning, and it was like a morning mist out, and a crow landed between us on a fence post and started cawing at us aggressively. And we looked at each other and said, that's a bad sign. This is going to be a rough day. And it was such a cool moment, right? Now, nobody in the LARP plot committee sent a crow to us, but it was just one of those things where we were we were dressed in robes and jerkins and our every bit of medieval gear that we could dig up from our own closets and our SCA friends' closets, and we've got boffer padded weapons on our hips and shields on our backs, and we're brushing our teeth. And this crow lands, and it was just a cool moment. So I feel like those are the moments, the evocative, and again, you can look at that, you can see mundane and weird. It's right there, right? Mundane, hey, a couple of adventurers brushing their teeth. A little bit strange, a crow comes and screams at you for 3 minutes. And those are the beautiful moments for me. And I really like those. And I would love to hear about yours. So tell me, what are the strange, evocative moments that happen in your games? I'd love to hear about them. And I think it's also, on a technical level, just gaming, that every moment doesn't need to be an action movie. Depending on what game you're playing. If you're playing an action movie game, then maybe it does need to be an action movie. But there's a lot to be said for taking a breath and enjoying a quiet moment of strange deliciousness. In a fantasy world, and just enjoying that that's happening, enjoying that you're living through it, through this game. So let me know what strange, mundane, amazing fantasy science fiction moments you've had at your game. I'd love to hear about them. And let's go to the outro. This was Reply Show Oscar, a midweek reply show in which I reply to emails, messages, tweets, things people send me. I also sometimes will share links, and I also start a new segment in the reply shows when I can called Supporter's Choice, where if you're someone who is supporting the podcast, I will talk about something that is interesting to you, if I've got something to say about it. And today was our first example of that, and I really liked it. So we're going to keep trying. If you would like to support the podcast, there is a support the podcast button. It is on the Anchor site and is also in the show notes. Please click it if you'd like. You can also support this podcast by buying a copy of the Dictionary of Moo, which is my swords and sorcery, science, fantasy, Mars setting for the Sorcerer role-playing game, set up like a dictionary. I'd love for you to take a look at it and play and add to the dictionary. Let me know. Another way to support the podcast is to email me. Drop me a line. You can do this through the Anchor app. You can do this through email. My email is judd.karlman@gmail.com. You can do this through Twitter. My Twitter link should be in the show notes. JUDD_of_KRYOS, Cryos, an homage to the Sons of Cryos, a podcast I was on back in the day, which was a lucky thing. And good times. Almost a decade ago, more than a decade ago. Woo! I hope all is going well for you. I hope that your summer is splendid. This is not a normal show. This is a reply show. And those come out when possible on Wednesdays. And the regular shows are numbered differently. So this is Reply Show Oscar, going by the NATO phonetic alphabet. And the reply show, the regular shows are numbered, numerically. So if any of this has had an inspiration on you, or it reminded you of something going on in your own game, I would love to hear about it. And thank you all for listening, and I hope to hear from you soon. I hope gaming at your table is going splendidly and is recharging your batteries and inspiring you and informing you and making you appreciate the world all the more. Have a good week. I will see you Sunday night.